So we've gone over layers, just the basics of how layers are lined up, and we've gone over sort of how the basic interface is set up in Illustrator. And the main two tools that you'll use in the beginning when you're first learning how to do all of this stuff is this black arrow tool, which is the keyboard shortcut is just if you hit a V, it'll bring that up for you. And that's basically just the selection tool. So it's kind of, you have to imagine you're using a pair of tweezers or something, grabbing these little black pieces of paper that you've cut out on your piece of glass. So it selects those objects and allows you to move them around. So if you want to scoot this ear a little bit, you can do that. If you want to go ahead and change the shape of it, you can actually grab these handles and scooch them around. So it just lets you to kind of, it tells you what you've selected, what you've kind of grabbed a hold of here. The other arrow tool is the direct selection tool, which is the keyboard shortcut for that is A, and you can see that whenever you mouse over it, it'll tell you what the keyboard shortcut is. And the direct selection tool does pretty much exactly what the main black arrow tool does, except for if I just click in the center of my object, it's going to do that. But if I click like this and drag, it's going to allow me to grab these vector points. And so if I zoom in on this, it'll show you how Illustrator basically constructs all your objects that you've made. So if you grab the white arrow tool and just select one of these points, you can basically adjust that. You can change these handles. Oops. If you adjust the handles, you can really tweak the shape of your object. So it just allows you to go in there and change the math, basically. So these Bezier sort of mathematical points. If you would like to, if you want to get all crazy, you can add points by clicking on the add an anchor point and just click on your path, and it'll add another one. So that could allow me to kind of make this ear do something crazy if I wanted to, or stretch it way out from those 2 points. And the little handles allow me to really adjust the curve of the path. So it's just a way to kind of exercise even more control over your objects that you've used. Most of the time, people like to just use the black arrow tool unless they need to go in there, because it can get really, really confusing quickly. Another good shortcut is anytime you're stuck, you can just double click the hand and it'll zap you back out to basically so you can see everything that's going on your page. So if you're in there really tight and you want to get back out really fast, just double click the hand and that'll bring you back. So that's basically how this is all set up and how it all works. So what we probably want to do now is we'll want to go ahead and learn how to join these paths together, because if I'm just going to try and build this object, this sort of mouse face or whatever here, this bear face, I have this these complex shapes, and it's a lot easier if this is just one background shape, if they're all just one thing. So one way I could do it is I could just turn the triangle up here, make this a layer and lock it so that there's nothing I can do to this layer now, and then I could just build another layer on top of that, and anything that I add to this now is going to be over the top of that particular layer. So that's one way to do it. It's kind of the lazy way to do it. What I usually like to do instead is just hit Command A, and then there's this great sort of palette that you can bring up called Pathfinder. And so anytime you can't find a palette, like if you can't figure out, you can't remember which one's which, you don't know what you're looking for, if you go over here to View, or I'm sorry, Window, it shows you all the different windows that you can bring up. And we're just going to bring up the Pathfinder palette, which is actually right next to the layers in mine. And this allows you to do a whole bunch of stuff. Like Pathfinder is a way to take your shapes if you select more than one thing in it. You can combine them, you can add them together, any of that sort of stuff. And so there's different modes here. So if I click, let's say, the exclude button, you can see that it's basically going to cut little holes in my shape. So now instead of having, so now it's wherever those things have overlapped, it's knocked them out. That might not be what I want here. I could do this one. I don't have enough overlapping paths for that to work. I can do this one, and that'll get rid of everything except for the stuff that's in the top. That might not be what I want. And I'm just hitting Command Z to undo things, just so you know. So Illustrator doesn't have a history menu. It just has Command Z, but you can Command Z pretty far back in time. What we want for this one today is we just want to go with the knight. So if you do that, now you can see instead of having all those separate black circles, it's now just turned it into one big giant shape. And so this shape I can move around. It's basically one big vector shape with some complex math that tells the sort of stroke here where to go. So that's great. That's a simple thing. It's cleaned up nicely. It's simple. That's usually what you want. So let's pretend like I want to add some like cartoon eyes to this now, right? Oftentimes I'll just do that with this ellipse tool, and I'll change my color just so I can kind of see what's going on. And maybe I'll get rid of the stroke altogether and just go with a fill. So if I have my ellipse selected here, I can just grab that and add an eye here, and maybe add an eye here. And then if I don't like the shape of it, well, I can easily just go into that path and move it around, right? So I can kind of play with this thing, make it look the way I want it to, adjust it, whatever I want to do. Sometimes it's easier just to grab this one, you hit Command-C, which is copy, and Command-V, and then they're both the exact same object, and I know they're the same size and all that kind of stuff. So if I have this, and let's say that instead of just layering things on top, I just want to cut a hole in this. So if I want to, I can grab this and the background information, and so that just you hold down Shift to make multiple selections. So you select this, hold down Shift, select that, hold down the background, and select that. And that selects everything that's visible. If we go to our layers here, you can see I have all three paths selected. This little blue line, or the little blue square tells me that. And then I can go back to my Pathfinder again, and I can do this one. No, that's not it. This one? Nope. Maybe this one. There you go. Okay. And so now, and then if I unite it again, now I've basically got one piece of paper. You have to imagine this is one piece of paper that I've cut these eye holes out of, right? And so now I have a really simple vector shape that is available for me to kind of play around with. So if I wanted to, I could add another ellipse in there for eyes, right? I'm going to make as creepy a bear as possible here, right? And so then I kind of have my basics, the basics of my the thing I'm making. So in this case, this little illustration of a bear, right? So once I have everything kind of set and ready, and I have my layers all ready to go, then it just becomes just kind of a matter of working this. So if I like the way this looks and I'm comfortable with my base layer, then I'm just going to like lock this layer off so nothing can happen to it. I can't move it around. And I'm just going to come down here to this little thing that looks like a post-it note you're peeling up the edge of, and I'm just going to add a new layer. And you have to imagine this is setting another layer of glass over the top of the first layer. So this way, I don't have to worry about accidentally selecting something underneath it. That layer is ready. And then let's say I wanted to go in here, I wanted to add some highlights to this creepy bear's eye, or I could do that by grabbing white, maybe getting rid of the stroke on that, and then put a little something like that on there. Now I have a couple of like super creepy eyes, right? And then if I want to, I can go in with my pen tool, and the pen tool basically just draws mathematical shapes, right? So it just basically kind of draws it just basically traces. So if I go here and then there and then there and then there and then there, it's just making paths, these mathematical points. If I want my paths to be curved, I just click and drag, and then it clicks and drags that around. You guys will learn a lot more about this as you go. So I could, if I wanted to now, I could go ahead and just build some shapes that I want to kind of layer into this. If I want to get rid of a layer, I just select it and delete it. So I'll probably, let's say I want to add sort of like an interior part of the ear here. So I could zoom in if I want to a little bit. I could click my pen tool. I want to make sure I select the right color, so let's go with like a dark brown for fun. Got my pen tool, and then I can just click, drag a little bit, click up here and drag a little bit, click down here and drag a little bit, and then click there. So I've got kind of a basic shape now, right? And it might not be quite what I want. And if that's the case, I can just grab this the white arrow tool, and I can go in there and adjust the handle to change these pads around so that it does a little bit more what I want it to. So I've got my, I could just build a whole bunch of shapes up this way, add them over the top of it, and then I'll have my illustration of my bear. One thing to know is that you can do stuff to the fill or the stroke. Up here you have all the colors, right? So you have your color guides. You can add color guides, so if you want to see what it looks like in RGB, you can click on that. If you double click let's see. Yeah, there you go. If you double click this, or if you just click that little arrow, that'll bring up all these sliders that you can kind of adjust. So if I have my object selected and I do this, I can change it around and it'll kind of preview that for me and show me what it looks like. If I get a color I really like, I can just click on it and drag it into my Swatches palette. So if I click over here on the Swatches palette and I have a color I like, I can actually just click on it and drag it in, and it'll drop it into this for me. And I can actually name it too. So let me name like Bear Red or Bear Brown, let's call it that. And then I know where that color is, and I can grab it anytime I need to and apply it to any of the other shapes that are visible in here. I can also do, all these have different options in them. So you can actually, add a symbol in there. You can change the stroke weight and width on this thing. You can also add a gradient. So if you add a gradient to this, that basically just adds a little, like this kind of sort of a fade. And if you want to add a color, you can just double click in there, and you can actually go in and select a different color to add. And you can add as many stops to this as you want to, and it'll change that. So this can get really corny, of course, really, really quickly, but it's just, that whatever object you select, these palettes allow you to do stuff to them. You can also adjust the opacity. So if you want to change the opacity, you can crank it back so it's not quite so dark. You can also go in here and change around blending modes, which just do different things depending on, what kind of things you have on top of each other. So if you just click down through all this stuff, you see your appearance palette, you see your styles. That's a little more advanced. We'll get in there later. You can change around your artboards there, and then here's your transform, pathfinder, and the align thing. So the nice thing to know about alignment is if I have two of these, just copy it, and I don't know if they line up perfectly, I can just select both of them and click these buttons, and it'll help me align them, one thing or the other, perfectly on top of each other. Or I can, as long as I have both of them selected, I can line them up like that and move one over. If I want to make sure that they're aligned at the bottom, I can do that. So it's a very useful tool. So that's the basics of how to build shapes in Illustrator. So between this tutorial and the first one, that ought to at least get you started.